Well, good morning, church. It's crazy what memories will randomly pop into your head. This past week, I was reminded of my very first car wreck that I ever had. Any of you guys ever remember your first car wreck? I mean, most of you probably try not to think about it. I saw several hand raises. This is the larger section. This is the honest section. I was thinking about my very first ever car wreck. It happened 1 year after I got my driver's license. I was living down in my hometown of Beaumont, which is down in southeast Texas. And I remember I was driving a 2005 Kia Amante, which was remarkably high class and fancy. Now, it had recently rained. It was not raining whenever I was driving, but it had recently rained. And I'm going a nice Texas 55 miles an hour, which is actually 75 miles an hour. And I go, the way this road in Beaumont is, it's like an overpass, but it doesn't have those concrete walls. It's got the metal guardrails. Y'all ever seen those before? Overpass with the metal guardrails? It's kind of scary because you kind of go up into the air. So I'm driving on that when all of a sudden, my car, it hydroslides. You know when you're driving in the rain and the wheels lose traction? My car hydroslides on the overpass. So, you know, when your car hydroslides, you lose complete control. You're not driving anymore. You're just along for the ride, praying the entire time. So there my car is on this one-lane overpass. It loses control and then, boom, veers right into the guardrail. But it's not over. It hops to the other side and bangs into that guardrail. For the next couple of seconds, it's the great pinball wizard that's happening. I'm literally ricocheting back and forth 4 or 5 times between these two guardrails. And you know, it doesn't feel comfortable whenever your car suddenly slams into something. It's very jarring. And so several times I ricochet back and forth into this guardrail, and I'm just stunned. I'm like, oh my gosh. Actually, you know what a good feeling is? You ever play bumper cars with small kids? Oh my goodness, it's reckless abandon. Young people act like they're made out of rubber and that they can't die. Bumper cars, okay, so that's the feeling. So I sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I slowly drive forward. Now that I know that your car can slip in rain, I'm like going 6 miles an hour. I quickly pull over as soon as I get off the overpass, as soon as I possibly can, and I get out. I check my body. All right, I'm still here. Look at my car. It's not here anymore. My car got totaled from that experience. It's amazing how much these heavy blasts into the guardrails will actually, like how much damage it will do to a vehicle. My car was absolutely totaled. Could not drive it anymore. Had to call someone to come pick it up. Had to call my grandfather to come get me. Scary experience. What's even worse is to this day, when I drive over that overpass, I can see the indentations in the guardrails. And I'm like, should I go get a Sharpie and sign my name? Like, Greg was here. I did this. Absolutely terrifying. And it did not feel good whatsoever. And it was expensive. But you know what? Thank God for those guardrails. Because can you imagine what would have happened if they weren't there, if they didn't exist? I wouldn't be here anymore. I would feel like Superman for a couple of minutes, and then I'd be gone. Thank goodness for those guardrails. Now, today we're continuing our sermon series, this new sermon series that we started last week called Love Actually. And in this sermon series, we're contrasting what society views love as and what God reveals true love to actually look like. Last week, we talked about God's love being patient. We talked from Luke chapter 15 about the story of the prodigal son and how even though he was horrible and went and squandered everything, when he came back, his father never condemned him, but rather ran and embraced him and loved him just as he'd never left. Now, we're in the book of Hosea. We're in the Old Testament. And let me just give you a little bit of context before we really dive into this. Hosea is one of the prophets, and it's one of the prophets towards the very end of the Old Testament. So here you've got God who's brought the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery. He's brought them to the wilderness. He's taken them into the promised land. There they are. They've claimed it. They're there. They're established. Oh no, they're not totally pleased. They want a king. God brings them a king. He raises up a king for them. God provides for them. He allows them to have lush vineyards, wonderful fertile soil to be able to grow their crops, nice trade routes. There are lots of other foreign nations that try to rise up against them and kill them all, but God protects them. I mean, he truly does incredible things for these people so that they will recognize what a blessing it is to be his people. And God establishes a covenant with them. One simple thing to keep in mind. I will be your God, and you will be my people. You're not to worship any other gods. You are to worship me and be my people. Live in relationship with one another. So there, God has fulfilled his part of the promise. He's there, he's providing, he's blessing, he's doing everything he ever said he would for these people. But oh no. The people, they're just not faithful. There's something about the human heart that causes us to eventually wander away, to eventually stray from the right path, to turn away from recognizing the blessings, and to want something else, to want something more. So after a period of time, the people start to become unfaithful. Now, at first they're nice and good, and they're thanking God and looking to him and praying to him and celebrating him. But eventually what starts to happen is the people start to intermarry with other people from other nations who then start to bring their gods into the mix. And the Israelites start to say, well, the grass is always greener on the other side. Maybe we should worship your gods. Maybe we'll get even more blessings. Or, you ever do that before, right? You ever look at something and you're like, I need that. Like golf clubs. You're like, these golf clubs are great. I just bought them 2 weeks ago, but look at how shiny that one over there is. You ever do that? No? Okay. So the people are looking at these other gods and they're like, it's shiny, it's new, let's worship that, let's try this. You never know what might happen. Not only that, they start to think that their prosperity, their blessings, the great things that they're experiencing and that they're doing, their good health, they start to think that that's from either their own efforts or these other gods that they're worshiping. Either way, though, they take their attention, they take their focus, they take their relationship away from God, who truly brought all of these blessings to them. Now, God, he doesn't like that. He doesn't appreciate that. He had one thing he expected of them, and they're failing at it. They're literally worshiping other things based on what God has done for them. So God takes Hosea, who is a prophet. A prophet in the Old Testament is someone who speaks on behalf of God. A lot of people think that prophets are, like future tellers, sometimes. But a prophet in the Old Testament is someone who speaks on behalf of God. So God sends Hosea, and he gives them this message. He says, I want you to go and marry a promiscuous woman. You're going to marry her, but she's going to cheat on you, and she's going to have several kids by other people who are not you. And this is going to be an illustration to Israel. God is like Hosea, faithful. He's there. Israel, which is the northern kingdom of Israel, is like Gomer, the promiscuous woman that Hosea marries. She goes and she cheats and she has kids by other people. Even though Hosea has been faithful, even though God has been there for these people, Israel continues to wander off and give their love, give their attention, give their affection to something or someone else. So God sends Hosea with this message. And this pronouncement that we read in chapter 2 is part of that message. Now, when we read this passage, there are a lot of people who could easily get hung up on this passage. Did it sound really positive to you whenever Joe was reading it? Not really, right? It sounds kind of negative. Like most people, I imagine you probably think in your minds, like, Greg, I thought your series was Love Actually. You just read us a path about condemnation and wrath and anger. This is not love. This is God clearly furious with these people. But just bear with me. I want to do a thought experiment real quickly. Well, I don't want you to say anything, but I want you to think in your minds. What does our culture what does our culture define love as? Think about society, think about culture, think about TV shows, think about movies, songs. How do we typically think of and describe and define love? What is love? Oh, hey, that could be a title of one of my sermons. What is love? Okay. You all could have joined in, but that's fine. What do we think of love as? Well, our society and our culture teaches us that love is affirming somebody, that love is supporting somebody. If you really love me, you would accept me for what I want to do. Well, if you really love me, you would support me in whatever I try to put my mind to whatever I'm wanting to do. Well, if you really love me, you would be for me in whatever makes me happy and whatever I think is right for me. If you really loved me, you would be with me every step of the way, even if you disagreed, even if it's not what you would do, even if you think it's not a good idea. If you really loved me, you would affirm my decisions and what I'm wanting. It's a pretty good definition of what society views as love, isn't it? Now, in this passage, we see the exact opposite of that. In this passage, we see God acting in a completely different fashion. You've got Israel who's going off worshiping other things, celebrating themselves, celebrating gods that don't even exist. They're happy. They're doing their thing. You would expect, based on our cultural value of love, how we view it, you would expect God to be like, you know what? They're happy. Whatever floats their boat. If that's what they want to do, let them be. But instead, God has a dramatically different response. In fact, the exact opposite. In the first several verses, we read about God taking things away from these people. Verse 9, therefore I will take away my grain when it ripens and my new wine when it's ready. I will take back my wool and my linen intended to cover her naked body. So now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers, and no one will take her out of my hands. Wow. If you've got someone who says, I want you to do this, I think what you're doing is wrong, and you say, no, I want to do it anyway, and then they take back things that they gave for you, they take back things that they let you have, things that they did for you, would you be like, act of love? This is one of Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, taking things back. No, you'd get upset, wouldn't you? You'd be like, you Indian giver, now I'm going to be mad at you. We do not view that as love. We think that if someone disagrees with us, true love would be willing to continue to support us, continue to give to us, continue to let us have whatever it is they were doing, continue that even when they disagree with us, right? That's what we would think love is. God's clearly not doing that. He's taking away the very things he's provided Israel. The grain, which means the food that's produced from their land because the soil was so fertile, he's going to stop it. Their harvests are now going to go dry. The wool that he produced to keep them warm, right? So the sheep, I guess the sheep are going to go bald. I haven't really read about how to interpret that phrase. But he's going to take that away, right? The things that he has been providing that have allowed these people to feel blessed, that have made them feel like they're prosperous, God is going to cease. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Are they still going to be prosperous and be blessed? Speak now. This one's not rhetorical. Are they still going to be prosperous and be blessed? No, they're not going to be prosperous and be blessed because everything comes from God. If God stops that, it means it ain't happening. The pizza cutting board that they've been worshiping isn't able to provide those things. Not only does God take away the things that he's been providing, though, this one's even more shocking. This one's even more jarring. Look at what God does next. This is in verse 11. He says, I will stop all her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, all her appointed festivals. I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. I'll make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. Oh my goodness. These are things that God did not even give to Israel. These are things that came from elsewhere, and God says he's going to ruin them. Could you imagine if you got upset with your wife? This is just an illustration for the dudes. Guys, how many of your wives garden or have some sort of garden or a garden? What's another word for a garden? You got vegetable garden, then what's the flower one? Garden? Flower beds. You can tell mine are empty. There's nothing in them. How many of your wives have that? How many of your wives do that? Couple of, okay, there we go. All right, now think about this. Imagine if you want your wife to do something like, honey, I think that we should, I think we should have steak every night this week. And then she says, no, I don't think that's right. So then you go out and you absolutely stomp her garden and flower beds to death. You go out and you pull everything out and then you feed it to the dog and then you go and you just, sprinkle cement all over it, right? Destroy it. Would she feel like that's an act of love? You'd be in my office doing marital counseling, wouldn't you? Ladies, did you like that illustration? What God's actions here convey don't immediately make us jump to thinking, wow, this is a loving action. Wow, this is clear that God is demonstrating love for these people. These are things that are clearly bringing them joy, things that they like, and yet God is going to specifically and purposefully wreck them, destroy them. Why? Does that make you a little bit uncomfortable? Does that make you wonder? Some of you are still probably sitting there thinking, Greg, this passage isn't about love. This is about wrath. This is about judgment, condemnation. But it's not. It's about love. Do you know why it's about love and why it's such a powerful statement of love? It's because God is doing all of this to bring Israel back on the right path. See, right now, Israel is completely veering off course. God is the one who is the Lord, the giver, the bringer of life. In him there is joy, not in anything else. Israel has strayed away from that, and now Now they're in danger. So God is doing these things specifically to nudge Israel back in the right direction so that they won't be in danger. Any of you guys ever like hiking? Any of you guys ever go on like nature walks, something like that? I'm full of great illustrations today. I do too. I love to go somewhere. I mean, not for like a long one, but I do love to go out. There's very nice carved paths for you, a very clear walkway where you are supposed to walk. What happens if you veer off path? Now, if you did Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts or Eagle Scouts, you are not allowed to answer. You guys are like survivalists of another order. But normal people out here who, went through ordinary life and the city life and are sheltered like me, what happens if you veer off path? You die, exactly. That's where the bears and the wolves are that will eat you. That's where the serial killers live. You're gone. So there, you've got the path that's there for you to follow so that you can make it to safety, so that you can experience life. The Israelites have started to wander off the path into the dangerous woods, and God is saying, no. Let me kick you back in the right direction. Let me steer you back to where you need to go. This is just like the guardrails from my opening illustration from my first car wreck. Yeah, it's going to be unpleasant. Yeah, it's going to hurt for a minute, but it keeps you from flying off into sure and certain death. So here you've got God who says that he's going to stop providing the grain, stop providing the wool, stop blessing the Israelites in all the ways that he's done before. Why would he do this? So that they can recognize, these things aren't coming from ourselves. These things aren't coming from these other gods that we're worshiping. It must be from this God. Let's turn back to him. Let's turn back to the real Father and give him the worship he deserves. He's stopping it so that they can see and understand where it truly comes from. And then we read that God is going to purposefully destroy these other things that they have. But notice, it's not like it's just a flower garden that they went and planted themselves. In verse 12, he says, I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. These things have become an idol. These things have become a token of people turning their attention and their affection to something else. So God says, I'm going to remove these idols from their lives. I'm not going to give you anything that you can worship besides me. I want to completely take away, remove the temptation, remove the opportunity. This would be like if one of you came into my house and threw away all of the junk food and saying, Greg, we're going to get you healthy again. We're going to get you to drop 60 pounds. We're going to get you on the right track. It would hurt a little bit because then all my cabinets would be empty, but it would get me on the right track. So here, God removes all of these things. Now, this is true love. It hurts. It's uncomfortable for them, but it's true love because it actually cares for them. Our society views love as, we don't want to upset anybody. If we really love someone, we won't make them mad. If we really love someone, we want them to know that we're there for them no matter what. But if you truly loved somebody, if you truly cared for them, would you let them go down the wrong path? Of course not. Of course not. If you truly, truly loved your kids, you would not let your 12-year-old walk up to you and say, you know what? I think I'm ready to move out. You'd say, think again. If you really loved your kids, you wouldn't let them say, I'm going to have candy for breakfast every day. You wouldn't say, you know what, I'm going to affirm you. I disagree, but I want to support you and affirm you in your decisions. No, you would steer them in the right path. Same thing with your friends. Same thing with your spouse. And you know what? God does the same thing for us, not just for the Israelites, but he does the same thing for us. Sometimes in our lives, we start to veer off the path. We start to give our time towards other things. We still say, love God, love Jesus, worship God with everything I got. But practically in our lives, it doesn't look like that. We start to give our time and our attention and our effort and our energy towards other things, and practically, we're no longer worshiping God. So sometimes, God sets up these guardrails to bring us back onto the right path. Sometimes that looks like removing idols from our lives. There's been a number of times where I've had someone in my office who's going through a big breakup with someone who they idolized in their life. She was perfect. She was everything. Who am I without her? Well, when you turn someone into an idol in your life, there's a strong possibility that God may just remove them so that you can learn what it means to worship God and not someone else. Sometimes we start to think that the blessings that we receive, that we enjoy, come from ourselves. Business is going so good. I'm so smart and I'm so handsome and I'm so brilliant and hardworking. Everything I have is because of my own effort. Guess what God might do? You might be in for a hard season. And it's not because God's punishing you. It's not because he's mad at you. It's designed to bring your attention, bring you and your affection back to him, the one, the only true source of everything. So friends, this is what true love looks like. True love is willing to offer some hard truths for the sake of the good of the person. Make no mistake, God is always working for our goods. Just because something doesn't go our way, just because a door doesn't open that we really wanted to walk through, just because we end up losing something that we care deeply about or really wanted, doesn't mean that God is working against us. It doesn't mean that God is absent. Sometimes it means that God is removing something for the sake of our own spiritual health and ensuring that we are staying on the right path that we should. Friends, that is good news, and that is true love. Amen and amen.